Welcome back to Viewing Vids, where we're taking a deep dive into the show that redefined animated storytelling, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Today we're recapping the very first episode, a masterclass in world building and character introduction. The scene opens not with our hero, but with a lone Fire Nation soldier being led before his king. He's not there for a medal. He's there to deliver a stunning piece of intelligence. The other nations have stolen the Fire Nation's battle plans. But instead of panic, the Fire Lord simply sips his tea. It's a calculated move. They wanted the plans to be stolen. This is a game of deception, a misdirection to lure their enemies into a trap, while the Fire Nation sets its sights much higher, at nothing less than total world domination. This moment sets the stage for the show's central conflict. We're reminded of the four nations, water, earth, fire, and air, who once lived in harmony. This peace was maintained by the Avatar, a single person capable of bending all four elements. The Avatar is the world's most powerful superhero, but in the Fire Nation's eyes, they're the biggest threat to their ambitions. The Fire Nation's goal isn't just conquest. It's the total elimination of the Avatar. We're then introduced to our hero, a young boy named Aang. He's an air nomad living a peaceful life at the Southern Air Temple, a serene mountaintop sanctuary. We see him soaring effortlessly on his glider, looking out over the village. He seems to have not a care in the world, a stark contrast to the brewing war. He lands to speak with one of the air nomad masters, and that's when he learns of an upcoming visit from masters of the other temples. A council meeting is held to discuss Aang's future, where his master argues he's still too young and needs more time before he's ready to learn the other bending arts. The masters are cautious, protective, and probably want to keep Aang safe, in their peaceful, isolated bubble for as long as possible. Despite their protests, Aang's master takes him aside and reveals the truth. Aang is the next Avatar. He must leave to master the other elements. The news hits him hard. It's not the glorious destiny he imagined. It's a terrifying burden that means leaving his home and everyone he loves. It's like being told you have to move across the world for a job, but that job is saving all of humanity. Distraught, Aang takes off on his sky bison Appa and flies into a terrible storm. As he's caught in the tempest, the Fire Nation unleashes its full force on the air nomads. They attack the temples, hoping to wipe out every last airbender and, with them, any chance of a new Avatar. The peaceful nomads fight bravely, but they are overwhelmed. The Fire Nation leaves nothing but destruction in their wake, killing every man, woman, and child. Back in the storm, Aang and Appa are pulled into the freezing water. In a moment of panic, Aang's Avatar powers activate, encasing them in a massive sphere of ice. It's a self-preserving trance that freezes them in time, a 100-year nap that will change everything. A century later, we meet Katara, a young waterbender in the Southern Water Tribe. She's practicing her bending, but it's not going well. She's the last waterbender in her entire village, and the art is nearly lost. She returns to her home, Wolf Cove, a small, snow-covered village. Here we meet her brother, Sokka, who's doing his best to act as the village's self-appointed general. He chides Katara for her bending practice, reminding her to be careful because the Fire Nation is always on patrol. On a fishing trip, their small boat is pulled by the current toward an icy cliff. They end up on an ice floe where they discover a giant iceberg with a mysterious figure inside. At the same time, we see the Fire Nation's ships nearby, caught in the same ice field. Unknowingly, Katara's touch on the iceberg activates Aang's Avatar state. His tattoos light up, as do the Avatar statues on the Fire Nation ship, a signal to the world that he has returned. The iceberg cracks, and Aang emerges, his arrow glowing, before he collapses. Sokka is immediately suspicious, but Katara insists on bringing Aang back to their village. Her grandmother, Gran, senses something special about him. "He's the last airbender," she whispers, her words a mix of awe and sorrow. Meanwhile, on a Fire Nation ship, a disgraced Prince Zuko paces. His mission is his obsession, to find the Avatar. His uncle, the wise and easygoing Iroh, tries to temper his fiery impatience, but Zuko is driven by a singular purpose given to him by his father: find the Avatar and restore his honor. Aang awakens, disoriented, but cheerful. He quickly makes friends with the village children, but panics when he realizes Appa is missing. With a loud whistle, he calls his sky bison, who majestically appears. Aang recounts his storm story, but Gran realizes the truth. She explains that the Avatar disappeared 100 years ago, and with him, the Air Nation. The Southern Water Tribe was the first to fall to the Fire Nation, and the Southern Air Temple was the second. Aang is a living relic, the last of his kind. Katara takes Aang to her secret training spot, a secluded cave. She shows him how little progress she's made with her water bending. Aang, ever the natural teacher, tells her to feel the energy of the water. Taking his advice, Katara suddenly finds her power, effortlessly bending the water. But their moment is interrupted. A Fire Nation ship pulls up to the village, led by Prince Zuko. He demands to know who among them doesn't belong, a thinly veiled reference to Aang. Sokka, vindicated in his suspicions, is ready to give Aang up, but Katara stands firm. They decide to protect him. Sokka confronts Zuko, challenging him to a duel. Zuko, an expert firebender, easily gains the upper hand. Just as he's about to strike a final blow, Aang steps in, using his airbending to protect Sokka. A brief skirmish ensues, and Zuko realizes the truth. Aang is not just a lost airbender, he is the Avatar. To save the village from being burned to the ground, Aang agrees to go with Zuko. Locked in a cell on the ship, Aang is surprised to find Iroh there. Aang asks why the Fire Nation started the war, and Iroh responds with a strangely nuanced answer about a misguided quest for peace through conquest. Aang isn't convinced, stating that true peace comes from respecting life. With a calm demeanor, Iroh leaves, promising to send Aang some jasmine tea. Aang uses his airbending to steal the guard's keys and escapes his cell. Sokka and Katara, meanwhile, have a better idea than using a boat. They'll use Appa to rescue him. Aang finds his way to Zuko's quarters, where he discovers Zuko's journal detailing his obsession with finding the Avatar. He also reclaims his glider staff. He makes his way to the deck, where Zuko confronts him. Aang jumps off the side of the ship, using his glider to escape. Zuko gives chase, hitting Aang with a fire blast. Aang falls but is caught by Sokka and